So about a while ago, I came out with this video, basically soft white knighting the Sunless Zone Zero. To me, reading this title right now feels pretty cringe. Sunless Zone Zero is still free to play. So the video was about the last 4 Deadly Assault are actually pretty normal, the difficulties are fine. I even got the numbers to prove it. And just a week after I dropped this video, they just came out with the hardest Deadly Assault ever. Only 45% of player could get over 60k score. To give you an idea of how bad is this, remember back when this video and this video was dropped? That was like 50% player could get above 60k score. And yes, objectively, we got not perhaps, not one of the. It is the hardest Deadly Assault we ever have. It's almost like death is waiting for the right moment to throw me under the bus. And it doesn't just stop right there. We also got the most difficult Shiyu defense ever. A lot of people already complains about it. And for the last 4 to 5 Shiyu defense, I was having zero problem clearing the Shiyu defense within 4 minutes. And I'm talking about the first try. And this time I couldn't clear it the first try. And of course, after I adjust my rotation, my teams a bit, I could also clear it just fine. But the amount of time to clear the Shiyu defense apparently extended. I think it's about like 4:30. So it is undeniably harder in both Deadly Assault and the Shiyu defense. And yeah, before you came out with the argument like, hey, maybe people haven't learned the pattern of the new boss yet, so they got like the harder time to clear it. Like, no, it's not. I've been measuring the difficulties of the Deadly Assault like all the time, so I know how it works. At the beginning of the Deadly Assault, you would have the highest clear rate on the day 1, because if you're willing to play the Deadly Assault from the day 1, you're probably a pretty hardcore player. But if you're like really casual and doesn't really give a fucks about it, you wouldn't mind clearing it on the last day. So the clear rate is actually the lowest on the last day of Deadly Assault. So I would generally pick the number within the first week. And I see no difference in this Deadly Assault. The number would have at least stayed the same if people are catching up by learning the boss later on, but that's obviously not the case. And to be honest, to actually learn and master the mechanics of it to a pretty baseline levels, I think an hour or 2 is pretty much enough. You just gotta memorize when the yellow flash gonna happen, and then you're gonna parry it. And I've been watching some video from Kate7, from Everslot Gamers, from Resi Aligato, and of course EO. I think all of them do brought up a pretty valid idea. The new boss draw is more interactive and more interesting. It makes the game more fun and more engaging. And I think it's more important than the difficulties itself. I think it's always a good direction to make the game more fun. So you won't feel like you are fighting a ragdoll that occasionally dish out some damage that you don't necessarily have to dodge. And the other thing that Kate7 brought up, like there's some specific mashup, like the Ambi trigger and the Orphe mashup is pretty good with the straw, even though it's the electric resistant. But damn, the possibility of the mashup is so goddamn low. It probably has to do with my trigger doesn't have her signature. I'm using Chingy's signature. And I don't have Orphe, I use Astra. And try out some other combination, but it doesn't really work well. I couldn't even get A. Anyway, I have absolutely zero thing against him. He's trying his absolutely best to help out the community. We all know what kind of person he is, but it's just something that I want to point out. I just want to say that the boss and the mechanics are getting more fun, but to get that 9-star is objectively harder than ever. They definitely mess up with the difficulties of the game. I think it's half intentional and half messed up. And I do think most of us know exactly why. Because they want to raise the awareness of like, hey, it's probably the time to pull for the new waifu, the new agent like Daolin. Or maybe in the future like the Ye Shunguang on the next banner. So that's why they came up with the boss that is so shield, so mechanic specifically to the Daolin and Ye Shunguang. And I think even to some extent in the Shiyu defense, they also did this. It's a pretty obvious attempt that they're gonna pressure people into pulling for Daolin. And of course, the Ye Shunguang. You would probably have a pretty good time playing with Daolin in the current patch, assuming that you got Yutali, Aveline, or maybe at least Yixuan as your DPS, cause that's how I clear with the Shiyu defense for now. I even has a pretty good time clearing the Thrall, the new Deadly Assault boss with the Yixuan. With this Lucia, Nicole, Hyper Carry, I clear it just fine. Can't say that it's a good score, but it is what it is. Like, if I can't stun the boss consistently, why don't I just shift my DPS to overall DPS inside and outside of the stun window, and it works just fine. And I do think this team would also work with like Yutali and the Aveline. I'm talking about like Hyper Carry, maybe like Astra Lucia for the Yutali, and Astra Nicole for the Aveline. Swap out Nicole with the Lighter if you have Lighter. And that was my plan with the boss if you don't have Daolin like me. Anyway, when you are in doubt in the pool decision, you generally want to just skip it, because the strongest agent are probably in the future. So the more you skip it, the more your account gonna benefit from it. Even though that means you're gonna be suck ass in the current patch and having harder time to clear the endgame content at the moment. Anyway, this is the takeaway that I'm gonna tell you guys. And the general rule of thumb is pretty simple. Waifu over meta, and the good middle ground is always vertically invest in your waifu's team. And I'm talking about like getting the best teammate for the waifu. And you do want to get deeper into the rotation and how this team work more than your average meta player does, because you are basically on the uphill battles playing this way. But that's also like part of the fun, right? And one last thing about the Kate 7, about his take that I strongly disagree with. He keep tossing the idea about there's no such thing as a must pool. This is misleading, this is misinformation, and could cause global warming. Just look at this childbearing hip, and you tell me this is not a must pool. If you don't pull for Ye Shunguang, you're not good enough to deserve this game. Anyway, you guys know I'm just goofing around, and don't forget to like and sub. And remember, the meta is temporary, but the childbearing hip of Ye Shunguang is eternity.